Amen, amen, I say to you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will become joy. That's the verse that ended yesterday's gospel reading, and it's the same verse that begins today's. I must have read this passage every day last week as I tried to prepare a reflection on it, looking for that perfect, significant thing to say. I started out focusing on the idea that we are made for joy. I mean, look at the text of the psalm today. All you people clap your hands and shout to God with cries of gladness, and God mounts his throne amid shouts of joy. But after struggling with that for a few days, I realized that the whole concept of exuberant joy and triumph didn't really resonate with me this year. So I did what I always do when I'm on deadline. I procrastinated. I went out for a run, I cleaned the kitchen, I practiced voice, I groomed the cats, I took a nap, and I checked my email. And finally, I sat down and I reread the passage, and I noticed what I had avoided before. You will grieve, but your grief will become joy. Not you may grieve or you might grieve, and your grief will be replaced by joy. You will grieve, and it is that grief that will be changed, that will be transformed into joy. Of course, this set off a whole wave of anxiety. What if I don't think I've experienced anguish? Does that mean there's nothing there to be transformed into joy? Compared to others, I've had a good safer at home. Between Zoom and Facebook and email and phone, I've actually spent more time with my brothers, nieces, mother, and father than I would have in normal circumstances. I've been able to pray the Liturgy of the Hours and the Rosary. I've attended live stream concerts, and I've read some novels that have been on my to-read list for some time. I've sat down to dinner with my husband every night. It's been nice, but it isn't shouts of joy and trumpet blasts. It took a phone call to a good friend to settle me down. The gospel passage is set in the context of the Last Supper, and Jesus is speaking of the grief the disciples will feel because of his coming death and the joy of the resurrection. I realized that I was busy looking for a big dramatic experience of sorrow, grief, or anguish in my own life because I wanted a big dramatic experience of joy. She reminded me that we don't all experience emotions in the same way. So I took a beat. Rather than joy and sorrow, I began to frame the passage in terms of presence and absence. What do I do when, although I believe God is present, I feel like he's absent? And I found myself at the end of the reading. I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice. I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice. I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice. I think I just found the mantra for my next run.